practice number 3 for the Tyrepower Tasmania Sprint and Event 3 of the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship. This weekend, 2 races to the SuperSprint format, 120 kilometres of racing today and 200 kilometres of racing tomorrow. We'll do it on Symmons Plains Raceway, and thanks to Virgin Australia, we'll have a closer scrape and understand a little bit more about this track. 2.4 kilometres around here for 7 corners. Yesterday in our coverage, we described the track as simple on paper, not so simple to set up for and master. It's got a couple of very interesting features. An incredibly slow corner down there at turn 4. High speed approaches into 4 and 6. A pretty high average speed, just under 170 kilometres an hour. And we've got big brake pressures here. In fact, brakes get stressed here more than any other location, primarily because of the hard work they do into the hairpin at 4 and into the back straight area at turn 6. To start the lap, you've got to leap over a little hump just past the pit paddock area, and that destabilises the car into turn 2, where there's a gravel trap on the outside if you make a mistake. There's another gravel trap on the outside of the slowest corner, not only at this track, but anywhere on our national and international tour. And then it's a roaring run up the back straight for a top speed of 266 kilometres an hour, wind dependent, and then 2 corners 6 and 7 that bring you back past the pit paddock and pit lane area. So it's a fast, furious lap. It's just under 1 minute around here, and it's very easy, and we'll talk about this during the race, to go 1 lap down in the races if you fumble the pit stop or there's pit lane congestion or you have to double stack. Car number 88 on screen. Jamie Whincup has had more success here than any other driver. 12 victories. In fact, the Red Bull Holden Racing team have had 19 wins, and you may have seen leaning against the bricks in the background in the garage there was Garth Tander. He joins Red Bull for 2019, having vacated his seat at Gary Rogers Motorsport, and together with 18 other drivers yesterday, Garth was part of the additional driver practice session that gave us a first official look at the way in which some of the co-drivers are going to perform their trade for 2019. There's GT, Garth Tander. Got off to a good start yesterday in what we called practice 0. It was the co-driver practice. He was pretty quick. Fastest was actually Warren Luff driving the Mobil 1 Mega Fuels entry. So this is practice 3, as Jess described. 30 minutes the duration for this one. Critically important because it's going to be the final opportunity to get the cars trimmed prior to Armour All qualifying this afternoon. Scattered cloud cover overhead. We've got about 17, 18 degrees out there. We're on our way to 20 degrees today. But one of the things that's notable is we've got a stronger northwesterly breeze today. Had very heavy rain and wind squalls overnight. In the middle of the night, it was pretty wild here in Tasmania. We're on the northern side. We're about 30 kilometres from Launceston. But right at the moment, from the northwest, around about 15 kilometres an hour, whereas yesterday we had a situation where there was next to no wind out there. It was only about 5 to 10 kilometres an hour at best. Most of the time the flags were limp. Now that has an impact on the performance of the cars in a straight line down the back straight. It also changes the way they brake into this hairpin, and where your braking reference point is going into turn 6. You can see beautiful skies here at the moment. They're still talking in the Bureau of the possibility of showers between 1 and 6 mil, 80% possibility of that at the moment. It doesn't feel like it out there. So 2 practice sessions yesterday. Whincup was the fastest in the first one and the fastest in the second. In fact, he broke his own practice record in the process. He got down yesterday to a 50.5084. This is David Reynolds on screen for Penrite Racing, car number 9. And hasn't had an easy start to this year's championship, trying to come to terms with some of the technical changes surrounding the category this year. Car number 97, Shane van Gisbergen, had a little bit of discomfort at one point yesterday with the seat in that car that he was sharing with Garth Tander. He rectified that and was immediately on the pace. They did an engine change, by the way, on Jamie's car after practice 2 yesterday. Joining me back in the commentary box from the host position, Mark Scaife. And we're looking forward to this one as Anton Di Pasquale finds an awkward moment between 2 and 3 through the gravel there and gets back on with it. Critical session, as I said as you were walking in, Mark, because it's the final opportunity now to do your trimming before you get into the all-important qualifying. Oh, that was wild. Actually, it started at turn 1 for Anton. I'll get to Mark in just a tick. So he tried to throw it in there very deep. That little hump that I described when you saw the track map up on screen before pitched the car sideways as it nosed over under brakes, and he wrestled it to conclusion on the approach to turn 3. Luckily got away with that one. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Neil. That was an ugly moment, wasn't it? He was right out sideways over the rise that you're explaining. And that little position always creates wheel locking issues, but it was way more than wheel lock. In fact, it was sideways when he first turned the wheel.
Very weird.
There's something strange that gone on there. That was actually, it lost rear grip almost immediately when he turned it to come up and over the rise, and it wasn't even really in the cornering phase.
The cars all but bottom out on the approach in there, and Anton quite wisely has come back in to understand what the issue is and let them have a good look around the car. Meantime, Scott McLaughlin, championship leader, 500 points, 6 races, 5 victories, and it did not start. If you missed the coverage at the Australian Grand Prix, he and Cam Waters found the same point on the road in the warm-up lap prior to the start, which meant so much damage on that car they couldn't press on with it. But of the races that he started, it's been a brilliant initial run in the commencement of the championship for McLaughlin, who yesterday stood on the inside down here at turn 4 and played reporter for us in our coverage and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. So yesterday he wound up in 7th position. His teammate Fabian Coulthard was in 8th position. So going into qualifying, we've already effectively determined what the first part of Armour All qualifying looks like today. That's coming up next after this session, because the top 10 runners from yesterday's second practice session, they move straight into the second portion of Armour All qualifying. So, and then trouble here for Lee Holdsworth. That's actually going to go nowhere and inevitably will trigger a red flag. He's gone off at turn 4 up at the hairpin, I'm guessing. In fact, I can see it out of the commentary box window. So he's well buried up there. Bit more tailwind effect there today because of that northwesterly that I spoke about. And David Stewart, Deputy Race Director, Craig Baird and Tim Schenken and Cam's Race Control have called the red flag, and there's the reason why. The Botlow Ford Mustang parked down there. Now, it only takes a tiny little bit of tailwind down there to change where you're able to pull up the car from compared to yesterday. I'm guessing that's caught Lee.
Totally. And normally it's about 245k down to 50k for the slowest corner that we have on our tour. That's Chris Brady there. And they'll just be using that to get a little signal as to where the spot is that you turn across from. Just a little bit of discipline and protocol pre-pit stops as a consequence. But when you have a tailwind like that up to the hairpin, you could be 4 or 5k faster. And if you're going to try to stop the car roughly 100 metres out, you've got to knock 200 k's off the car within 100 metres. So from the time you put your foot on the brake, you retard the car effectively 200 kilometres an hour in a 100 metre zone. So you don't have to be too deep to end up where Lee did. Now, I was really interested in this because when Anton put his foot on the brake, that car did not even look like making the corner. It looked like it had a massive corner weight issue or something, Lucko.
Yeah, Scafey, I just saw Barry Ryan down here. He didn't look too pleased and he didn't want to say too much, but I just looked, the front rotors on this car are brand new, I'd say. So maybe he's gone out to bed a brand new set of rotors and they haven't bitten at the front, or something's gone on there. So that's why it looked a little unusual when he went off. Yeah, but look, and that's, it did it so early. Just watch this, folks. So right back at in front of the coach sign, you'll see the second of the Erebus cars, Penrite Racing Commodore. As soon as he put his foot on the brake, it had all rear brake, but it wouldn't normally turn left like that. That's why I thought there might have been a little corner weight issue. Now, maybe he had a little bit of steering angle on it, which created the first thing. But I'm going to look at it again for you. Check this out. This is wild. It's roughly 210k. Yeah, he did have a bit of steering on it.
Well, and naturally you are inclined to be steering to the right there, and the car's falling down the dip, so there's a little bit of steering, a little bit of momentum.
And a little bit too much rear brake.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
So that got Anton's attention, got our attention. Here we are, Will Davis and Milwaukee Racing on the run to the hairpin. And you'll see what happened to Lee here. And that's him spearing off in the green car on his way to Hobart. And a couple of fairly significant black lines behind the back of that car.
Hobart's about 180k further on, but anyway.
Well, he was well on his way. So they've now gone down there with the Ford recovery vehicle, the Raptor, and they'll be able to get that car back out, get the gravel off the road and get Lee back underway. He was. That's generally where he's heading. We're just right. We're parallel to the road between Launceston and Hobart. He's frustrated inside that cockpit because you just lose a bit of momentum, and then there's all the junk on the tyres and ends up in the brake ducts. And he's done the right thing, vastly experienced, so he's pulled off the racing line to clear out all the garbage and make sure that it doesn't impact those that come along next. But when you have those offs, just such a fine line between getting it right and getting it wrong down there, but you still inevitably kick because you beat yourself up in the process.
Well, it's a confidence thing, isn't it? And as soon as you have a little off like that, then you're a little bit more sensitive and a little bit underdone in terms of your technique down there. It's a much different braking style there than it is at this one, because the braking style into 4 has big cycling change when you knock the 200 Ks off that I spoke of. When you're trying to retard the car that much, when the first part of the stop happens, it's blocking the rears, and then right at the end, it's fading the front. So that's why you see the rears actually too efficient by the time you get to the corner, and often it feels like you pull the handbrake on. Remember, these cars haven't got a differential, so they've got a spool diff, which hooks both rear wheels together, so they do the same speed. So if you lock a rear wheel, you lock both rear wheels, and that's like pulling the handbrake on, Murph.
Yeah, just to get an update there while GT is standing here and not doing much. Is that radio actually on, mate? Are you listening to anything?
No, I've got the radio on. It's not the car radio.
Now, what was going on with Shane? He jumped out of the car. Obviously, a bit of a decent change going on at the front end, but why was he out?
Yeah, he got out because there was a big change they were making to the front of the car, and he had a radio issue, so he jumped out, changed his earpieces, see if that fixed it.
And was that part of the program, the change going on there at the front, part of their plan for the session?
Yeah, it was planned. The plan changed. It was a bigger change, so it actually, that red flag, it lost a little less time, so it actually worked out all right.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Garth Tander yesterday driving in car number 97 that he'll be sharing in the Pertec Enduro Cup with Shane Van Gisbergen on screen. Ended up being second quickest, so it was Warren Luff that was the fastest. Garth Tander was second. I spoke to him about the run last night, and he said he really enjoyed the car. It was easy to acclimatise, and even though the spec has changed year on year, straight away he felt a comparative difference getting into the Red Bull Holden Racing Team car. So high level of confidence, and it was shown straight away with the times. Now, we had a quick shot up there of Nick Percat a few moments ago as well. Different colours this weekend for car number 8, and it'll be Dunlop bright yellow that you'll see in the background when you do see Nick Percat out there. They had a dashboard issue with that car yesterday. Didn't have any shift lights at one point, disturbed him in the first practice session. He ended up being 11th fastest. James Golding on screen, car number 34. He's $1,000 poorer today than he was yesterday because he got stung for passing under yellow in practice 1. And he had good company because Jamie Whincup did the same thing. So it was down here, because cars go off down here a lot and they end up a long way off the road. There's a temptation when you're on green tyres to just press on with your lap. And that's certainly what happened to Whincup. So he had his fastest lap deleted yesterday, and he's also sitting slightly lower in the car, $1,000 poorer.
You mean his wallet's a little thinner?
Yes.
So James Golding had a monstrous moment where Simona Di Silvestro went off yesterday. We looked at it a little earlier at the host spot. It was a wild moment right here. So Simona got out into the grass. She had her foot hard in the throttle, and she spun round at 185 kilometres an hour and got away with not hitting the fence on either side. Golding had a similar one. He didn't actually spin, but he was on full opposite lock, and that was a big moment for young James. Tim Slade is now fastest with a 51.24 from Percat, Van Gisbergen, Golding, Coulthard, McLaughlin, Mostert, Winterbottom, Courtney, and McCall Jones. That's the current 10.
Good start yesterday for James Courtney on screen, car number 22. Ended up being 5th fastest. Warren Luff was strong in that additional driver session that I spoke of as well. So they're slowly beginning to unlock some speed in this outfit. It's been a bit elusive in the first couple of rounds of the championship, coming to terms with the change in the spring rules this year. But he's typically gone pretty well at this racetrack. You made the observation yesterday when we were in deep discussion in practice about how important it is to have car stability and brake confidence here. And there's massive amounts of time, given the velocity of the cars on the brake approach into 6 and into 4. You're truly travelling a lot of metres per second there. So if you can get on that brake pedal a heartbeat later and control the car beautifully and still hit your markers, there's a huge yield to be had in that regard.
Absolutely. So Courtney, that lap that we just watched, was fastest in Sector 2 and Sector 3, which culminated in him going to the top. That's a big moment. Great car control. I love that. Whincup did the same thing yesterday. So Whincup fired over the hill like that yesterday. And have a look at the amount of bar work and stuff that he's doing there.
So there's a tweak on the steering wheel. There's fiddling with the brake bias. But over the rise at turn 1 then, he had it fully crossed up, and then he started to feed it gears, and then he had to change its direction. Has he got enough happening? There's a massive possibility of grabbing the wrong thing at the wrong time there.
Yeah, we've got to actually at some point make sure that you don't make it too complex for yourself, and you've got to be able to replicate it lap on lap. So you've got to know exactly what number that is, and from a consistency perspective, it's actually quite hard. The braking thing is reasonably easy because you basically go to the rear over there as GT, but you also go to the front for turn 4 and to the front for turn 6. So there's sort of 2 zones of effectively changing the brake bias, Murph.
Yeah, just on the Lee Holdsworth, he's just leaving again after having that moment that caused the red flag. A fair bit of obviously gravel and stuff they pulled out of that car, but they also made a rear rotor change. They put some brand new rear rotors on that car. Spoke to the boys inside the garage there, and he had an imbalance in the braking down there. It was very uneven, and a temperature issue, I was told, imbalance between the front and the rear that caused that off for him. So they've thrown some new rotors on it. That wasn't part of the plan. He'll have to bed those as well.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty important to get that right before qualifying, because just prior to the start of this session on the host set, we detailed the changes around the Parc Fermé with these cars this weekend. So David Reynolds is about to find the gravel. Oh, he just skirted the edge of it. So there are a couple of little telltale brake locks in the background there, showing you on the replay what happened. So see the lock light on the steering wheel blinking red. In fact, it's on the dashboard just behind the steering wheel, I beg your pardon. But we can see from the outside on the replay what he was dealing with. So as soon as those front tyres are not rotating, he doesn't have steering authority over the car, and he couldn't get it to turn. David Reynolds at the moment, though, has just moved up 19 positions into position number 5. So he would have had a better set of tyres on. He's had a bigger crack at the end of the back straight, but he couldn't carry the speed. It'll take a little while for everybody just to find centre down there under brakes because of the slightly different conditions today. Mark Winterbottom was strong yesterday. He ended up being 4th fastest in the Irwin Holden Commodore. And it was at one stage, car number 18 for Irwin Racing, right at the top of the charts.
Yeah, Mark Winterbottom, speaking of, he's also had a long pedal, so he's just spent some time in the garage. They've just put new rotors on his car, so important to get that sorted before qualifying as well.
That's Rihanna. So the long pedal means a lot of brake pedal travel when the driver reaches, particularly here. You get a little bit of what's described as a knock-off effect here. So you go for the brake pedal and it travels much further than you're comfortable to deal with. Typically gives you more rear brake than front. That car was on the rev limiter there at the end of the back straight as well. Picking up Whincup, and he's currently 9th position as we jump on board with him.
Let's have a listen. Yeah, that's nowhere near as much as it was yesterday. No. So it's just making the limiter now before the break point. That'll be 5 or 6 kilometres an hour slower. We're normally about 265.
Nice balance through
Beautiful.
6 and 7 there, wasn't it, for Whincup? So if you watch the steering inputs, he just fed the throttle gently and he didn't have to catch the rear end of the car at all. Scott Pye's just gone to the top on a 51.1, so we're now very close to breaking into the 50s. Reference yesterday, 50.5 fastest time for Jamie Whincup.
Have a look at the whole field. The whole field right now, 25 cars, because we've got Jack Smith as a wild card this weekend. 25 cars within 0.8 of a second. That's unbelievable.
Smith did a nice job yesterday in his debut run in the main game. Ended up being 23rd fastest on a 51.2. Ryan Walkinshaw on screen. And he's on a 51.8 so far in this session in the SCT Brad Jones Racing Holden Commodore. This is James Golding in the Boost Mobile Gary Rogers Motorsport entry. Richie Stanaway's teammates in 23rd position. James is in the top 10 at the moment, just. He's on a 51.4, right behind Jamie Whincup and right in front of Chaz Mostert. So that's a good start in proceedings for him.
That's right. So the top 10 cars are separated by 0.3. So nothing in it there in terms of performance. Is right behind Whincup, as you said. 51.42 plays 51.43. I wonder whether overnight they've been able to make these cars a little better, Neil, because Scotty McLaughlin was 7th yesterday, and he said he didn't do the best lap. He wasn't happy with his lap. So there's a couple of major things that go on around here. There's only 7 corners, and you have to make sure every single element of the lap, the sectors are perfect. So you want, the car and the interpretation of the data with your engineering group to optimise every little bit. And he goes too wide there. That will have cost him time. He was understeering too heavily in the middle of the hairpin. That's back at 50 kilometres an hour. And then the second bit is you've got to be very honest with yourself about your own performance. Did you optimise the braking? Did you actually make the gear change nice coming out of the hairpin? That hasn't made the limiter there.
Because he was understeering so wide at the hairpin,
lost
a little bit of telltale blue smoke there. So not only does that hurt the run into the corner and through the mid, but the corner exit speed's down, and then that hurts your top speed at the end of the next straight sector, which in this case was the run into turn 6. So it was hundreds of revs away from peak that time. On screen, Team Harvey Norman, Simona Di Silvestro, car number 78, who yesterday, just a couple of hundred metres back from that shot that we're taking now, had the wildest of wild moments when she just dropped the right rear off onto the grass, and the car flicked sideways. When it finally came to a rest, keeping in mind it's doing more than 200 kilometres an hour at that point, well more, and it all straightened up, and she gathered it up and pressed on. It was a little heart stopper. Nick Percat, Dunlop colours this weekend.
Got the dash working today. All those lights are working up the top there proper. There's Holdsworth, who at the moment just come up a little bit. He's done 51.5. McLaughlin's gone a little bit faster. He's come up 6 spots up to 7th. Slade, who we're watching, has done the fastest first sector of this session, 17.47. So Slade fastest in sector 1. Sector 2 is Courtney, and sector 3 is Courtney at the moment. There were, of the Commodores yesterday, the 5 fastest cars, 4 different teams represented in that. And Slade, he didn't actually go any quicker. He did a 51.24 previously as his best. He did a 51.29 on that lap. Here comes McLaughlin. Car looked less nervous under brakes than what the Tickford cars looked yesterday. So I'm sure between the 2 engineering groups, 2 different teams, etc., McLaughlin now comes up to 2nd with a 51.13 behind Pye.
Does look a little more lively in the front end, in the braking area into turn 6, though, that I reckon that they'll be happy with.
Yeah.
It's always hard to eyeball engineer from afar, but just there was a lot of movement in it, and the cars are travelling very quickly up there, as we've detailed. Now we get a little bit of a benefit of the tow here this time from Mark Winterbottom.
Mate, P2, this is a very fast race pace. Scott Pye fastest on a 51.1.
Doing a race run.
Doing a race run, and he's actually rolled out of it, so he's let Mark Winterbottom get away that time. Fabian's just moved up into position number 4 as well. The point I wanted to make about turn 6 is high-speed approach, more than 260 k's. There's little waves in the road there, but one of the hallmarks of the behaviour of that car, particularly noticeable at Adelaide and at Newcastle last year, and to some extent also at the Grand Prix, very, very good ride control. You didn't see a lot of movement in variation between the gap from the front wing to the road on that car. I reckon if I were able to eavesdrop the debrief, they'll be looking for a little bit more control in that area on the racetrack, because there's a big yield there if you could just find another 100 or 2.
There is, and there's sort of almost 2 zones of that, isn't there? When you look, I was just talking to Fabian before I come in, and the amount of pitch, and he was saying he's had too much rear locking down there. He's trying to minimise the amount of brake change. So have a look here. So he's got full front, and you can see and hear the chatter. So all that driveline chatter, all the axles and gears, all the chattering as the rear wheels are locked. As I said, both rear wheels are like pulling on the handbrake, and that's just sent him down too deep into turn 4. But
he hit it hard then, though, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
You could see the pitch angle change in the nose of the car. It really stood on its nose. So I think he was dead set trying to find the absolute limit. He found it.
He did, and again, it's different from yesterday. So there's a whole new braking point down there, and there'll be 20 or 30 metres difference. So there'll be 4 or 5 car lengths in terms of where you actually put your foot on the brake now compared to yesterday. Is Cam Waters. He had some dramas down at turn 6 yesterday. The car, Lucko, looked at it really close for us earlier about the way that set up, the asymmetric nature, the amount of camber on the right-hand side, the loaded side, and then the lack of camber on the lazy side of the car, the unloaded side, makes the cars squirm around and move about, and effectively yaw because they've got a different footprint from one side to the other. Shane Van Gisbergen's done a reasonably good lap at the moment.
When we saw that replay of McLaughlin into turn 4 a moment ago, you can actually see a stark difference side to side on the car with that camber that you just spoke of. The order at the moment is Pye and McLaughlin. They're still active on the racetrack as we pick up car number 35 here at the moment. This is Todd Hazelwood. iBet.com. Team.com.au supporting the car this weekend. And he's been generally punching well above his weight in the recent past couple of very strong runs. Very impressive in Adelaide, currently sitting in 17th for Lucko.
Well, we're talking about that camber change there earlier on. Well, here we are down here with Jamie Whincup. These cars have spent a lot of time in the garage, a lot of work going on, which I think is part of all that new Parc Fermé rule explaining. But you can see here, now if you look over there, you'll see springs on the ground. There's a red and a dark black one with different colour coding of springs. You probably can't see it. It's quite clever. Shane Van Gisbergen on the other end, which I haven't seen in a long time. They parked him, pulled his front springs and shock absorbers out. Usually they just throw another set in, as you described, Neil. But they actually pulled the springs off and put another set of springs on. Don't see that very often, and it took them quite a while to do it. Interesting.
Yeah, they must like whatever the characteristics of the damper are, and they didn't have another B set ready to go, so they want to retain the characteristic of the damper and try another spring combination on it. Todd Hazelwood looking pretty strong here at the moment. Position number 2, fastest in the speed trap yesterday, and he is only giving away the whopping margin to Scott Pye of 5/100ths of a second at the moment. This is an outstanding performance again by this young man, former Dunlop Super 2 champion, who's had a huge spike in confidence in the Matt Stone Racing entry this year. Change of car, 3rd change in 6 months. Here's a replay of him trying to pull it all up down at turn 4, and he's left his signature on the road down there as well. It spells Todd Hazelwood, but it spells fast at the moment because he's going all right, isn't he? Have a look at the rears on that. He had it completely stopped, but he managed that nicely, just released enough brake pressure to get it to change direction, sacrificed the corner, but didn't end up in the gravel.
And remember, he was 9th yesterday, so he's going straight through to Q2. We've got the different format of qualifying this weekend. So the top 10 from yesterday's final practice have got a free kick to go into qualifying 2. So in the first part of qualifying that comes up a little later today, you're looking for the top 5 out of that session to progress across to Q2. So Hazelwood, great job.
Fresh from his victory in California last weekend in the Ferrari. Tim Slade was on screen a moment ago as we pick up Van Gisbergen once more. Just touches that limiter in 6th gear at the end of the back straight, so that is 265, 266 kilometres per hour. What's the balance look like through that last corner? Not too bad. So Mark Larkin described the team having made a change to the springs on that car. This is the area of the racetrack where there are more bumps. There's the rise and fall over the hump at turn 1, and then the curbing down at 2. Slade under brakes having a battle to stop as well.
Oh, he almost got away with that. He was really close to getting away with that.
Well, you can see by the way the nose is dipping and diving that he's having to cycle the brake pedal here. And he thought about it, went, no.
Because if he turned the wheel, he was going to spin, wasn't he? So, yeah. But he almost got away with it. And sometimes locking the rear wheels there, like putting the handbrake on, almost creates the turn for you. So you can't get away with it all the time. And once or twice through the whole weekend, you'll get it absolutely perfectly. But he was close to being able to turn the wheel and being able to essentially incentivise the turn by having the rear wheels locked.
Oh, that thing of Van Gisbergen's glided over the top of the hill there at turn 1 that time. It's not really a hill, it's a yump. But he was well sideways. Well, it's halfway between a jump and a hill. But it was well sideways, and so that we had of him 10 minutes ago where he was well sideways over there means that he's probably trying to drive it that way. He's trying to push it to that limit. Heimgartner's on screen here, car number 7, 21st in the field, 2 personal bests in sectors 1 and 2 for a 51.7 for him at the moment. So he's giving away about half a second on the money time, which has been set by Scott Pye, 51.0. So we haven't quite seen a 50 as yet.
I can't get over the yump yet.
Well, have a look at it. It's just outside the concrete box window. I'll go and give you a lesson about it later if you like. I reckon you've had the 1 or 2 locked brakes over there from time to time, as we all have. Hazelwood and McLaughlin are back in the pit lane. Everybody else in the top 10 is active out there at the moment. Actually, Slade's just come in. This is Waters on screen. He's down to 23rd at the moment, but on to personal best, so this will likely lift him up. He'll most likely be on a better tyre set as well. Just on 7 minutes remaining, yeah, so he's just jumped up into 11th position now, which is more indicative in the Monster Energy Ford Mustang. And what's going on here with Lee? Looks like he must have speared off because that's a bit of gravel, dust and dirt in the background, so maybe he's had a moment down at turn 2. Back to Courtney, car number 22 now moves up into 4th position. Pye, Hazelwood, McLaughlin, Courtney, Heimgartner. It's a weird mix out there at the moment. Winterbottom on screen is 16th in the Irwin Racing Holden Commodore.
someone's run through that puddle. See the amount of water that's on the right-hand side there. So that's, there he is. Well done. Thank you, guys. So all that water is where the steam was coming from when you were trying to work out the Holdsworth issue. But that's chucked water all over the road there now. So you won't be able to use all of the exit. That's from the rain overnight. It rained very heavily in the northern end of Tasmania last night. That's actually really going to hurt the racetrack there. You have to compromise the line. You have to turn later and effectively turn the car inside that water. And that'll take a while for that to clear up.
I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd turn it into pit lane and wait for 3 minutes and let everybody else figure that out and then go back out.
Well, I'm tipping that the yump won't be your issue.
That's right.
It's after the yump will be the problem.
So Mostert is on screen here at the moment. Super Cheap Auto Racing car number 15. So he's using the Neil methodology. When it looks dangerous, pull into the pit lane.
It's a good call.
Yeah. It's time for a debrief. Cam Waters.
Yeah, just saw Scotty McLaughlin depart. I just want to get you guys focused on him. They just put a set of tyres on the car that aren't new, but they look very nice. I'm expecting to see a lap time here.
Well, but I can't work that out, Larko, because they must have seen the vision. There's no way you can do a lap time until that clears up.
Well, the Dunlop curb cam's got rubble in it down there, and there's water everywhere.
What's this? What's this? There's no way. No way.
Well, having to drive off the ideal line there and a track where you need 100th to make a difference. So there's still 5 minutes remaining. There's a little bit of dappled light out there at the moment. There's still a bit of scattered cloud here. It is actually getting cloudy, though. We started the day with crystal clear sky. It is beginning to cloud up a little bit. So chances are there'll be some grooves in the road before the end of the session. But you wouldn't want to pull the trigger too early on a decent set of tyres right now. Jack Smith on screen. This is the wildcard entry 25 for this weekend. And he's got some form. Did very well in New Zealand over the summer period. Has been a Kumho Series champion as well in years gone by. Here's the replay of him over the top of the hill at turn 1. Big lock up here. And that's the more typical look that you see at turns 1 and 2. The one that we saw earlier of Anton De Pasquale, that was a wilder version of it when that car leapt sideways with a brake imbalance at the start of the session. Scott Pye's the fastest out there still at the moment on a flat 1. He's got 5 100ths of a second over Hazelwood, who's gone back into the pit lane. Reynolds on screen, 12th at the moment. And the mid-sector, where he's just crossed the second timing line, the second intermediate, it's the best we've seen in the session, a 17.6. Fastest in Sector 1, Hazelwood. Fastest in Sector 2, the driver on screen. Cam Waters is fastest in Sector 3. And Reynolds now to the top, the first in the 50s, a 50.8. That's a very good time. That tells us that the track is cleaning up on the exit of turn 2 down here at the moment. Now, McLaughlin was clearly going out on a better tyre, but I wonder whether or not he used any of it too early while the track was still pretty wet down there. He's currently sitting in second on a 51 flat. I guess that answers the question.
And Dave's going on with it too, so he's done a better first sector. Here's De Pasquale, who had that monstrous moment. This is going to be a little bit better for him too. De Pasquale, who currently sits down in 10th. So Reynolds with a very impressive time, given that they only did a 50.5 yesterday, and all that water on the exit of turn 2, between turn 2 and turn 3. Holdsworth comes up 17 spots to 50.99. He's second. And what does Dave do? Slightly slower, a 50.86. McLaughlin, he comes up with a 50.85, so he comes up now into second behind Dave Reynolds.
Now that's the third flying lap by my reckoning on that tyre set. Percat jumps up into third now and displaces Holdsworth. So McLaughlin got better as he went, and that's probably more track than car because the tyres certainly don't get better with age. Stanaway's just moved up into 7th position as well. So there's a bit going on. Watch out for Coulthard here because he's looking quick at the moment. 10th, fastest first sector over anybody else. And I saw somebody else just throw Magenta up a moment ago too, but it's been quickly cleared. So Coulthard fastest in Sector 1, Reynolds fastest Sector 2, Percat the fastest in Sector 3. We've got just under 2 minutes remaining in our final practice session. Next up we'll have Armour All qualifying. Cars that you'll see first were those that didn't make it into the top 10 yesterday, and then we'll take a progression of those cars, and we'll explain more of the elimination qualifying a bit later in the broadcast. P2, position number 2 for Fabian Coulthard. Percat eclipses everybody now, so that's a very handsome time with the track condition. So a 50.69, 1/10 of a second over Reynolds, who's given it away and gone to the lane. A nice job in the Dunlop car for Nick Percat. Hazelwood moves up into, was 5th, now 6th, because Slade has displaced him. So Tim Slade moves up into 5th position. Golding has just jumped into 6th as they all cross the line here. There's a few laps completing. Courtney's gone up into 8th. There's the guy that's fastest. They were strong in the Australian Grand Prix support events in this car for car number 8 for Nick Percat. So there are 4 cars out there from Brad Jones Racing this weekend. Nick Percat is the fastest car at present of the group and of the entire field. Slade is in position 5. Corley Jones is in position 18, and Jack Smith is in position 19.
And looking at the body language of Percat and Slade's car in particular, they don't look to have as much squat and pitch as the Red Bull Holden Racing Team cars. And I think the twin spring scenario this year with us, we've gone to a single spring, so you haven't got the multiple spring scenario on the back of the car, and that's helped Brad Jones Racing. They've definitely come forward in terms of their relative performance.
Well, we've seen it in Adelaide, Melbourne, and now here in Launceston. So, you know, you've got enough variation across those tracks to consider that they have had a jump in performance. Milwaukee Racing, Will Davison on screen here. Car number 23 this year. They knocked the 0 off the end of it when Michael Caruso vacated the field at the end of last year. So the flag's out. Everybody just completing their laps now, and Will in 11th position. That lap was a 51.1. His best was a 51.0.
So Ben Gisberger's down at 17th, so he hasn't thrown any tyres out. No need in this session. Jamie Whincup ended up 10th. Whincup's still finishing this lap off, but it's not that handy. It's way away. It's second away in the middle sector.
So I think a few people are doing race runs here at the moment. Nick Percat talking to Andrew Edwards in the centre of screen. Brad Jones on the left. Andrew is the engineer for car 8. Vastly experienced engineer, and a guy that's been very clever at getting performance out of these cars so far this year. Confirmation of the results, practice 3, Tyrepower Tasmania SuperSprint. Nick Percat for Dunlop and Brad Jones Racing, home by a 1/10 of a second from David Reynolds in the Penrite Racing entry. For Shell V-Power Racing, Fabian Coulthard, best of the Mustangs, then Scott McLaughlin, Tim Slade, Golding, Holdsworth, Courtney, Hazelwood, another fine job, and Saturday winner from last year, Jamie Whincup, 10th. Davison, Pye, Stanaway, Heimgartner, Di Pasquale, Waters, Van Gisbergen down the order, but looked like he was doing a run. Jones, LeBrock and Smith. Simona, Chaz Mostert, 3/4 of a second away. That's a bit weird. And Winterbottom, who was quick yesterday down the order as well. Rihanna.
Nick Percat, you had those electrical dramas yesterday, but you said there was pace in the car, and you've certainly proved that this morning.
Yeah, you know, if it was an open wheeler and you had no dash and no lock lights and stuff, you can still manage it because you can see the tyres. But at this place where it's so dependent on your braking ability and be able to brake late and stop it without locking the tyre in a sedan, obviously you can't see the tyres and what's happening. So it was a little bit difficult yesterday without all that and no shift cut, and the list was long. But yeah, it was quite pleasant to drive a car with all the aids back. And yeah, obviously it's fast. We stuck to our program, didn't do anything crazy, and just kept doing our test items and worked out well.
You have to sort of do it the long way this morning with qualifying, missing out by the tiniest of margins. You have to do Q1, Q2, and of course see what happens after that. But was there a qualifying simulation this morning? Is that what you were working on?
No, that was all used tyres then. So I'm planning I want to be able to use my new tyres from yesterday, which I've done one lap on, to get through to Q2 and not use a set, because we've done a lap there, which was faster than what we did yesterday on a new tyre. Now we've got all the stuff back working, so hopefully we can run our used tyres, get through that first phase, and then we'll have the normal plan of what we had yesterday.
Thanks, Nick.
No worries, thank you.
Dave Reynolds, Penrite Racer, number 9, sitting nice and pretty near the top again for day 2. Didn't do too many laps though. What were you working on?
Mate, always working on car speed. Just getting ready for qualifying because of the new rules and stuff, so we're coming up with tricks to make the car fast and reliable.
So what kind of tyres were you on then if they were working on qualifying speed? A lot of people working on race speed. You're not focused on that?
No, we try and get the car good for one lap. If it's good for one lap, it's good for 50.
That's a great attitude.
It's not really. It's pretty stupid, but we're getting by.
You're getting by. So you're pretty happy with where things are at so far?
Yeah, not too bad. We tried some stuff overnight and didn't work, so we had to reverse it and then, you know, I suppose reconfirm that it was that change, so it was. So, yeah, now we can keep going.
A lot of people having issues down at turn 4 under brakes down there. We can see a lot of cars pitching pretty heavy, but everyone's obviously braking as late as they can. Your car pretty good at turn 4?
Not too bad. Mine's probably, I think, the fastest out of everyone, but the wind's swung around. Well, yesterday there was no wind. Probably for the first time in, I can't remember how long, there was no wind. And the time's really fast. The car felt amazing. And the wind's kind of, stuffing everyone up a bit. And, I nearly fired off a couple of times. I'm a victim as well.
Skill and daring saved you. Well done.
Thanks, brother. Cheers.
Scott McLaughlin down here pouring over his data. Sorry to interrupt you there, mate. Hey, Scotty, you know, the obvious question, been a very dominant year. Performance wasn't great yesterday, good improvement there. You're a tenth and a half away. A lot of people want to hear about where the Mustang's at now.
Yeah, look, we've made a massive improvement overnight. I think our car was amazing yesterday. We're just plugging along and just minding our own business and see how we go. But I think we're there. We're there.
Well, I don't think we saw the best of you. Put those tyres on, I saw, and there was rubbish on the track. So thank you, mate. Hey, Fabian Coulthard, position 3. Here we are again, mate. Early in the weekend, great pace ahead of your teammate there. We want the result at the other end of the weekend. Bad luck seems to come your way.
It certainly does. So, hopefully we can have a little bit of luck. That'd be nice. I think we've been fast enough at all the events this year. We just got to get rid of that black cat.
Don't want to dwell too much on the car, but there's been some changes this weekend we obviously know about. You guys aren't talking about it too much, so obviously not rattling you too much.
It is what it is. You know, that's what's been applied. We just have to drive what we've got. So we'll do the best job we can. If it's not good enough, we'll find more speed, so it is.
That's the attitude, pal. Well done.
Cheers, thank you.
So still a beautiful day down here in Tasmania. The possibility of some showers later.